Do you guys have big plans for your garden? I have big plans, let me tell you. I have huge plans. I mean, these plans are so big, they're probably not even going to fit in my garden. Hey everybody, Doug the CrocGardener here. Welcome back to another exciting episode. This week I am going to talk about what I am planning for my garden. And typically, yeah, I do usually have huge plans because my garden's never big enough. Everything I want to do, nothing fits in there. I mean, everything fits, but I have way too much going on for my space that I have. But this year, we're going to change that. So, what exactly are my garden plans for this year? Well, first off, how many of you guys out there do any type of planting? Do you guys just go out there and just throw your seeds out, scatter them out, plant here, plant one here, plant one here, plant one here, plant one here, or do you go out and actually decide where you're going to plant? Maybe draw a little map of what's what with your garden. It's an interesting looking map, isn't it? So I always, at the beginning of the year, try to make plans, and I always try to maybe map out my garden and put things in certain spots. I try to count plants so I don't overdo it. But that is just my kryptonite right there. I always overdo it. So this year I do have several goals in mind. One thing I'm going to do is make sure I do abide by my plant spacing. And just, yes, because I have those 3 last tomato plants, I don't have to find a spot for them. My neighbors can find a spot for them. Somebody else out there can find a spot for them. Doug doesn't have to have that spot for them. Watch me say this now, and then when I go out there and plant, I'll find a spot for them. But no, I'm gonna really try to work on my spacing this year. So yeah, that's one of my goals, and that's part of planting garden is one to have goals. Obviously, to get food is got to be one of your goals. But what are some of the other goals in your garden? Do you want to make it aesthetic so that when you go out there, it's pleasing to you? That's always kind of been a goal of mine, to be able to look at my garden and be proud and not have it be a mess. Unfortunately, every year it looks like a jungle. But, goals were made to be broken, right? So, anyways, this year's plans for the garden. So, last year I did try to add more space to the garden. I do have a couple maps. I'll show you maybe a zoomed in version of what the actual bed space looks like this year compared to what it looked like 2 years ago. Last year was the first year I increased these bed spaces. Essentially, took 3 beds and made them into real long beds and so forth. So I maximize my space that I'm using. I don't have near as many walkways there. So I can plant more plants, plant those 3 extra tomatoes that I wanted to get in. I also moved out my strawberry bed last year and moved it to a different part of the yard. It's not technically part of my garden anymore, but it is growing strawberries out there. And I also bought several cattle panel trellises last year, and put those up so I can grow more vertically than I do have to grow horizontally. So yeah, we're working on trying to increase that space so that way I can try to get my plant spacing down right. That's gonna be one of my goals for this year, and you'll find that out. So I'm not really gonna do any more bed additions to my garden. I probably will take out and put some. I do have some felt pots that I got. I'll probably try to use those this year, but it's not really adding more space. It's just utilizing the space I have a little bit better. One thing I do want to do this year is I got 3 blueberries that are suffering because they are right in the middle of one of my paths, and they get trampled on, and they're just in the way. I don't know how many times I've bent over and I've got a blueberry stick right in the rear end. Just not a good thing for me. I need to work on getting those moved. I think I'm going to move those over by the strawberries, because the blueberries and strawberries do like a little bit more acidic soil. So I can just kind of work that soil out by itself. So I'm going to work on that. Couple things that I probably won't plant this year. One is probably the butternut squashes. Those didn't really do very well for me last year. I'm going to try to limit my amount of squash that I have. I do like making squash soup. I just unfortunately don't. The squashes take up a lot of room, and it was very frustrating with the vine borers. Shout out to Chad out there. He is the going on pay-per-view. Chad versus the vine borers. Down home backyard gardening. By the way, you like this shirt? He has been against these vine borers for like the last several years. So he does have a couple things like his mothball water jugs and different things like that. I'm gonna try, but I got some red curry squash that I like to plant, and I'm gonna do some zucchinis. So we're gonna work with those this year, and we're just gonna try to limit the amount of squash space I have, so we can basically allow more space for other things to grow. I'm not going to do a whole row of sunflowers that I did last year. I'm going to use the sunflowers. I'm going to put them specifically in different spots, but I'm not going to have a whole big long row like I did last year. Those sunflowers, I do love them. I love feeding the birds in the wintertime. It gives me something to look outside and enjoy, but it's just a lot of space that was taken up. And sunflower seeds are easy to come by. So I do have some sunflowers, though, I am going to plant that are going to be out there for cutting, so we can bring some of the beauty inside the house. So a couple things that I'm going to do differently this year. I'm going to really try to, like I said, to work on the plant spacing, put things in appropriate spacings levels so that they're not bunched up together. Maybe spread my tomatoes out a little bit, plant fewer plants, get more tomatoes off those plants, maybe get a bigger tomato. We'll see how well that works out for me. I am notorious for doing that. The other thing is I am going to find that fine line of companion planting. I took that companion planting last year to a whole new level. I planted like onions here, there, everywhere, just trying to use those onions so that the smell of them deters plants or deters bugs from the squash bugs and different things like that. I'm going to try to take more plants and bunch them up in groups versus planting singles here and there. Now, there are plants like that that I will plant in singles here and there. That includes my marigolds and some of my flowers, just so I can get the pollinators all over the garden and fill in empty spots. But for the most part, my vegetables that I am going to be harvesting, I probably will group them up in little pods around the garden. It's not to say I'm going to have a whole bed of green beans, but I probably will have, maybe 3 pods of green beans around the garden. A couple things, other things I want to do is I want to have a group of what I'm going to call focus plants. These are going to be plants that I'm going to be focused on, and this is what I want to grow for this year for a good harvest. Last year, that focus plant was broccoli. I did fairly well with the broccoli. I did freeze some broccoli. I didn't have a whole year's worth of broccoli that I grew, but I was able to prove to myself that I was able to do broccoli. So this year, I'm going to focus on growing potatoes. I've grown potatoes in the past. You guys probably haven't seen me do much with potatoes here on this channel since I've had it, but it's been a few years since I've done potatoes. But this year I'm going to do some potatoes, and that's where I mentioned those grow bags earlier. I'm going to try to do some potatoes in some grow bags. I already have some potatoes planted out in the garden underneath a row cover. I'm doing a little experiment there. I'm also going to do the sweet potatoes. And this comes with, again, where last year I put a sweet potato plant here, put another one over here. And basically, I forgot where I put some of them. And that's where I had problems with my companion planting. I am going to do a bed of sweet potatoes, or half a bed of sweet potatoes. We love eating the sweet potatoes. The sweet potatoes last. We can have sweet potatoes for a whole year off of one harvest, which is phenomenal. The other thing I am going to focus on is my onions. Last year I had a really beaten down onion harvest, and that was again due to the companion planting. But this year I do have onions, and on my map here, basically I took onions and I planted them all the way down the side of some of these beds. And by doing that, I'm going to be able to take advantage of that of having those onions deter pests for their smell. Take advantage of those companion planting methods, but I'm also grouping them up, and I know exactly where those onions are going to be, and they're going to do well towards the edges of the bed as well, because then they'll have more light, when you're growing up next to a tomato or something like that. Another one that I really want to focus on that's always out there that I really haven't gotten too much of is my asparagus. And that is just a matter of fact. I need to start going out there and harvesting that more often. Asparagus is doing well. It's just I don't harvest it. And then by the time I don't harvest it, it gets tall and woody. And then we don't eat it. And it just looks like a big giant fern out there, which that's what it's supposed to do. But we're supposed to get some harvest off of it first. So that's on me. I need to get out there and just harvest it. And the last crop that I'm gonna really focus on again this year is gonna be carrots. We're out of canned carrots, and simply put, we're just gonna have to grow some more, just so we can have canned carrots. Those carrots are awesome. If you guys haven't had home canned carrots, not store bought, homegrown, you guys need to try those out. So, new plants this year. I have some Tigger melon, and I got some rich sweetness melon. So this is kind of what I'm thinking I'm going to do to replace some of that spacing that I had last year with squashes. I love fruits. Boys love fruits. So we're gonna try to do some melons this year. Plus, some of these melons, they got some different shapes. So we're gonna try them. See how well they work. Also, I'm gonna try some jicama. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but this is essentially a tuber. Basically, it's supposed to be a sweet tuber. It's almost like a potato. So I got these guys started. We'll see how well they do. Hopefully they come up for me. And yeah, this is gonna be something new that we're trying. I think every year, each one of you guys should challenge yourself to try something new. There's got to be something out there that you're missing out on, right? I mean, and you should always dedicate somewhere in your garden for a little bit of experimentation. Now, I don't mean let's go a hog wild with all different new varieties. I think you guys need to have some type of experimentation, and by doing that, you guys will find some new varieties, some things that work better than, let's say, like the red curry squash works better for me than the butternut squash. So that's why I use it. That's one of the new things that I found in my garden. That's a great example of that works out real well for me. So I really highly suggest that you go out and find those seeds out there. Usually it's seeds that you can find. Plants are hard to find because usually plants are specific for your area. But go out there, browse those seed catalogs, and see if you can find something interesting. Have fun with it. Make it a single seed challenge. Just enjoy it. Do some experimentations. So, plants that I am hoping that are out there that will do good this year. One, as I already mentioned, is my asparagus. Two should be my grapes. I should get a abundance of grape. Well, not abundance, but I should get a good harvest of grapes this year. I got 4 grapevines out there. They're all on one of those trellises, on one of those arch trellises out there. And hopefully those things will start growing and filling in those trellises. And we should have a good grape harvest this year. Plans for those, hopefully I can make some grape jelly. I got 2 little boys that love jelly. And then hopefully I can do a little bit of wine. I got 1 grape that's out there. It's a Chamberson grape. If you haven't been to any of Southern Illinois wineries, look up a Chamberson wine. Those are fantastic dry red wines if you like a dry red wine. The other plants that I'm excited for, this will be year 2 for them, will be the cold hardy kiwi. Now in year 2, you might be lucky if you do get some fruits from them, but basically, again, I want those to encompass the other arch trellis. Yes, I am concerned about how those look, and yes, I am excited about getting those all covered up. Like I said, I want to be able to go out to my garden and have a little bit of a zen area, somewhere where I can retreat and escape life from work and from everything else, and just go out there and even have a glass of homebrew, or have a glass of tea, or have some coffee out there one morning. Just love having that. Plus, I'm really curious on another fruit that I can eat, and I think these cold-hearted kiwis are gonna be fantastic. So hopefully, I'll get a few of those, maybe a handful at least, just to be able to try them and get excited about year 3 when they're really supposed to come on, and then maybe I can come up with some recipes on that. Another thing that I should start getting this year is my rhubarb. Oh man, have you guys ever had any rhubarb pie? Oh, fantastic. I know that's one of those things that people are like, "Ugh, yuck." But you know what? I love rhubarb. I'm going to be making pies. We can do some cakes. You can even do some jams with it. My rhubarb plants should be old enough this year that I should be able to start harvesting pretty heavily off of them. So here's to that. So hopefully those plants will make a difference. So another thing that I'm going to try to do in my garden this year that's going to help save me some time is I'm going to put in a watering system. Last year I bought these hoses, these little sprinkler hoses. I did a video on it, and I did find out that there is some trials and tribulations with them. I thought maybe I could get 5 of them and hook them all together, and then just have one hose, turn on the hose, and voila, my whole garden is going to be watered. However, I found that not to be true. And I also found out that I couldn't put those in when all my plants were in, because I could not just kind of weed them through. So before I plant this year, I am going to put those sprinkler hoses out. And I also am going to have a way that I could have the hose drug out there. Yes, I know it's going to be kind of old-fashioned or archaic. I don't have water going all the way out there, but I do have a long length of hose. But at least I can just drag the hose out there once, plug the hose into the system that's out there existing, and just take a manifold and turn on hose out 1, turn on hose 2, turn on hose 3, and just do one hose at a time. And I can go out there over a course of, maybe let it run for 20 minutes on each one, and get some deep watering done. Summertime around here, usually in August, late August, September, it gets really dry. We can have some really dry times. That'd really increase my pepper harvest and my tomato harvest by doing that. So I'm going to really work on getting that installed. And hey, hopefully I'm reporting next year that this was a success with that, which I think it will be. One of the things I typically do in my garden when I do the planting part of it is I will say, okay, last year, right here, I did basically up here, and then back here, I did tomatoes. This year, when I do my tomatoes, they're going to be over here, and maybe a few over here. So I do some crop rotating. I like to try to keep the soil from getting depleted of one nutrient all the time. I know that you can re-add nutrients pretty quick, especially the macronutrients, but it's those micronutrients that I'm a little bit worried about. So I try to rotate my crops around. Tell me, leave me a question or a comment down below. Do you guys do that with your garden? I know I see Next Level Gardening. He's out there. He's got his one tomato trellis, and he does pretty well with his tomatoes. He just keeps that same bed every year and just amends it. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. I mean, we're on a small scale. It's not like we're having to do pretty big crop rotations. My soil test showed decent amount of levels for everything. So I don't know, but I like to rotate things around. Shake things up a little bit. I don't like to have a dedicated tomato area, a dedicated pepper area. Plus, by doing that, I get all this planting done, and it's kind of exciting to plant. It's kind of like planning a trip. I can have a map out there, and I can just plan things out. That's kind of the exciting part of having a garden. So let me know. Do you guys rotate your crops? How do you guys do that? One other thing with the rotating of the crops is if you have a certain type of disease in an area, does that eliminate it from year to year to year? I don't know. It's just something that I've been kind of taught to do, and that's just what I do. So let me know what you guys think. Are you guys doing any planting in your garden? How do you guys plan your gardens? Leave those comments down below. If you guys like what I'm doing here, you want to see how well Doug sticks to his plans. I mean, last year I had a banner year in the garden, and it was probably a lot due to the planting aspect. A lot of planning, but yet a lot of hard work and sweat equity. But probably a lot because I did planning. So let me know if you guys want to see it. You guys want to stick around, see how well I stick around with my plans? Smash that subscribe button. Give me some thumbs up. Leave me that comment, everybody. Cheers. God bless. Let's get planting. Spring is here.